Hello, and welcome to the episode of Todd Talks. When Todd Talks, people listen. Because we are the future, Charles. Not them. Hopefully. I mean, I hope in the future. I want to be the future, especially the future of Death Ballot, because as you know, I want to work for them. But I digress. So today, we have a very fun matchup between Magneto and Tetsuo from Akira. And yeah, this is gonna be interesting. So let's just dive right in with Magneto because this is a character who's been long touted for Death Battle, and yet the question has always been who would he fight? Because Magneto is just that powerful. Okay. And so his origin story is honestly one of the more tragic, and that makes him such a great character. He was a young Jewish boy during World War II, and his parents were taken in the into the concentration camps by the Nazis. His parents were killed. He escaped, but it came at a cost mentally. And then eventually he found his mutant powers of magnetism, and it cost him his daughter's life, his wife left him, and his hatred for humanity as a whole just got like cranked up to infinite degrees. And so eventually he met a man named Charles Xavier, who at the time was his best friend, and they both agreed that mutants needed to come together and achieve a new life for themselves because they were more numerous than a lot of people wanted to admit. The difference is that Charles always wanted to work with humanity, and Magnus, or Eric, or Max, however you want to call him, um, he wanted to subjugate the humans because they were Homo sapiens, and he believed in Homo superior, which is what the actual title for mutants are. And this obviously led to a nice big branching of their ideologies, and eventually led Magneto to start a whole crap ton of groups to try and force his will on the planet and even the stars in certain cases. He's formed multiple groups, including the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. He's formed the Acolytes. I think one time he formed the Marauders. Don't hold me to that. There's a lot of history of Magneto, and regardless, he has tried and failed and succeeded multiple times to try and do better by mutants. In fact, you could argue that he is not singular minded, but totally driven to this goal of mutants above everything, or at the very least, mutant safety as a whole, that he will do whatever it takes. For example, you might remember Asteroid M. That was actually one of the first things he did. You might remember Geonosia, where he had a whole island full of mutants. There was Avalon. There was when he was a part of Nation X, and of course now Krakoa on in the current X-Men comics. His goal has always been mutant safety and then technically mutant superiority over the human race. But at his core, he's always just had this love for mutants because he's one of them. He knows others deserve to do better, to be treated better than humanity treats them, and so he's always fighting towards that goal. But of course, over his many, many, many adventures, he has flirted that line between like radical villain, anti-hero, hero, and more. In fact, if you look at his history with the X-Men alone, he's fought them, been their ally, been their teacher, been their leader, been their ace in the hole. He's done like everything you can. Of course, now with the House of X, not House of M, House of X, he was on the Quiet Council up until recently, which was the governing body, and he was one of the few who knew about Moira McTaggart. Don't get me started. Ability and how she helped reshape the world, and she went to both Charles and Eric, or Max, or Magnus, to get the job done so that Krakoa can be built, so that means finally have society to call their own. And in that moment, he honestly renounced a lot of his more evil ways so that he could be the leader that the mutants needed. And now he's on Arakko, aka Mars, and which I'll get to, and now is one of the main mutants on there protecting the other mutant nation of Arakko. Don't get me started on that one either. So yeah, he's done a lot, and that in part is due to his powers. Because if he didn't have the power to back up his guile and his will and his beliefs, it wouldn't really matter. But as the master of magnetism, Magneto is constantly and frequently stated to be one of the most powerful mutants, if not beings, in the entire world. In fact, over time, his powers have just gotten more and more insane in terms of what he could do. Um, he is an Omega level mutant, which you might remember a certain other Omega level mutant that we talked about not too long ago in Storm, and we all know how powerful she is. Well, he's beaten Storm, and she's beaten him, but like that's the level of power we're talking about here. He doesn't just control magnetism. If you think, when you say magnetism, what do you think of? You think of like a refrigerator. Almost there, right? Almost there. Almost had it right there. Oh yeah, right there. A refrigerator magnet. Like that's what you think of. Oh, it's magnetism. You could just make metal stick together. It's so much more than that. All right. Our world is governed by an electromagnetic field. It's what helps keep us all on the planet, which is obviously important. And there's electrical impulses that are a byproduct of this, and he can control the electromagnetic spectrum to a certain degree, which is why he can make, electrical force fields, if you will. He can actually control gravity, which is why he can fly and levitate. Um, he is able to alter the Earth's electromagnetic field, which I'll get to a little bit later, and he can feel the metal everywhere. Okay, if you watch the movies or you read the comics or see the cartoons, you know that his mastery of metal manipulation is so grand that he can affect the world or your own body. If X-Men 2, everybody, uh, probably the best X-Men movie. He was able to sense the iron in a guard's blood and literally manipulate it so that he could rip out 3 iron orbs, which was all he needed to break out of a prison. Just 3 metal balls. Mm. Uh, 3 metal balls. That's all he needed. And all Mystique needed to do was just add a little bit more iron to this guard's diet to make it happen. And that is absolutely something he can do in the comics. You might remember the Fatal Attractions comic where he actually pulled the metal off of Wolverine's bones. Yeah, he can do that. Now, there's not technically a lot of iron in your body, but there's enough. All right. It's stated that there's a penny. Oh, that's what I was gonna do. I was gonna do the I'm gonna count to 3. I forgot to grab a penny. I do apologize on that. Yeah, that's on me because I had that planned out. I was gonna say I'm going to move the coin. Darn, that was a great scene though. But seriously, like there's a penny's worth of iron in your body, and he could manipulate that if he wanted to. All right, and because of his power, he's been like one of the most constant threats to the entire world over and over and over again, including the X-Men and the Avengers, whom he has fought and beaten and lost to. Then came back, worked with them, worked against him. Again, he's got a really complicated history. Let me tell you about some of his feats, though. So, I remember the island of Geonosia that I talked about earlier? Let me tell you about how he got that island. All right, he wanted a home for mutants. This was during the Legacy Virus arc, I believe it was, and he wanted them to be in a safe place where they could be cured, or not have to worry about the disease and blah 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 blah. He straight up manipulated the entire Earth's magnetic field and basically blackmailed everybody. He said, "Give me the island, or I will wreck your world." Literally, they capitulated. So they gave him Geonosia. That's how powerful he is. He could affect the entire planet's electromagnetic field into making people realize, I can screw with you. And for the record, like, what would that do? That could affect the weather patterns. That could affect actual electricity in the world, like our electrical devices. It could cause rampant destruction if it was manipulated the right way. He had that power to straight up manipulate it. That's what he could do. But now, let me tell you about my favorite. Actually, I'm going to save that just for one more. Okay, Araco/Mars. Okay, this was the Hellfire Gala in the House of X arc, which is still going on. He was tasked alongside a lot of Omega level mutants to terraform Mars, and he did that by manipulating metal within the planet's core. All right, so that it would be better suited for a terraforming, because again, they were going to take the Araco mutants, don't get me started, and put them on the planet so that they wouldn't be a danger to Earth. So they were doing a nice thing, as well as not hurting themselves. So he just straight up manipulated the core of the planet. It was a little more complicated than that. There was a lot of things going on with all the other mutants, but that was his thing. Like, I have to manipulate the core of the planet. It just happens to be, molten metal. Okay, done. So yeah, he did that. But my favorite one, and this is one I will never forget, it was the Nation X arc. Long story short, Cyclops is now the leader of the mutants, and it was during a dark reign when Norman Osborn was in charge. He wanted, like Magneto, like Xavier, and like now with Krakoa, he wanted the mutants to be unified on a planet. This was after No More Mutants, when there wasn't a lot of them left, so he wanted them all in one place where they could live. So he made Nation X. Magneto shows up, and he's like, I love what you're doing. I want to join you. I want to help you. They don't believe him. They think, oh, he's totally going to betray us. So at this point in time, Kitty Pryde, one of the best X-Men, is currently trapped in space. Long story short, a giant bullet, like planet-sized bullet, it's a long story. A planet-sized bullet was going to be hit the Earth. All right, it was aimed at the Earth. It was going to hit it. Kitty Pryde sacrifices herself basically and phases the bullet so that it would pass through the planet, and then it just drifts off into space. She's alive in the bullet. Don't ask me how, but she is. And so the bullet is just there, and they can't do anything because, it's in space, and it's a giant space bullet, and obviously they can't, just grab it, right? Magneto can. He straight up meditates. He finds the bullet. Okay, he knew the bullet from where the bullet was from the High Evolutionary, where he's lost his powers a few times, but he was working with the High Evolutionary and he found the bullet. So he knew where the bullet was. He meditated on Nation X, just an island in the ocean. I think it was right off San Francisco, if I recall correctly. He uses his magnetic ability and finds the bullet, which is stated to be a few light years away. Okay? So he finds the bullet in space, grabs the bullet, pulls it to the Earth, which is a bad thing, and then he unravels the bullet as it's coming towards them, and then, frees Kitty Pryde. He did that. He absolutely did that. And the worst thing, and all it did was make him comatose. That's it. He woke up a little bit later and he was fine. Completely fine. Just, hey, I'm going to go find a bullet in the middle of space and get pulled to the Earth. He can do it. All right. So, yeah, as you can see, Magneto is incredibly powerful. And I haven't even talked about some of his feats, which I'm going to save for my prediction. But needless to say, he is one of the strongest around, easily one of the strongest mutants ever, and because of his abilities and his own intelligence and indomitable will, he is incredibly hard to defeat. His own weakness, though, is himself. He is like many we've met recently. This is like an ego trip going on in Death Battle. I mean, these guys in this episode are very ego trippy. His ego gets in his way. He at times is almost manic in his desire to see mutants above humans, and that has led to many of his defeats, as well as him pushing his body beyond the limits of what he can and should do in order to, prove a point. Like with the metal bullet, he went comatose for at least a short period of time. Other times he has pushed his body. Remember Geonosia with the electromagnetic field? That hurt him heavily in his abilities. So when he does things that are technically world-breaking, it puts a heavy strain on his body, and he won't be able to keep up with it because he's not exactly a young man. Though he has tactically gotten around this, it's still a weakness he needs to watch out for. But when you deal with the magnetic master that is Magneto, you're gonna fear the coin. You will fear the coin. Oh, such a great scene. And now, Akira, the movie and the anime. Sorry, so the movie, anime, comic. I watched in preparation for this Death Battle. I watched Akira for the first time ever last Saturday. Don't even try to get me to explain the plot. I don't get it. It was still fun, but like they were, yeah. And then I found out, oh yeah, they didn't even cover like 2/3 of what the manga did. So this is very important. This is very important. Okay. This is another case where the death battle is definitely going to, and they highlighted this in the preview. They're going to show the anime, but they're actually going to show the manga. But the manga is the source. Remember that. Okay, it's just like Sailor Galaxia. All right, the manga end differently than the anime, and so the manga is the main source. Okay, so in the world of Akira, a bomb went off in 1988 and caused World War III. Fast forward 30 years to 2019, and Neo Tokyo is built upon the ruins of the old world, and it's bad. It's a really bad place. It's very much dystopia, and this is proven by the Capsules Bike Gang, who are kids. They're freaking kids, and they're a biker gang, and they're trying to defend their turf and pick up girls. Okay, seriously, in the movie, these kids I want to slap because their treatment of women is just criminal. Like, I'm not even just talking about the whole they're abusive. Some of them are. Some of them absolutely are, including Tetsuo. But it's too much. Yeah, but it was 1980s, so what are you gonna do? Be better, kids. So in the world, in the biker gang of the Capsules, the leader is Kaneda, and his little brother is that of Tetsuo. They met in an orphanage, and then they bonded because everyone kept picking on Tetsuo, so Kaneda didn't like that, so he kept looking after him. And then when they made the Capsules gang, Kaneda was the leader, much to the chagrin of Tetsuo. Eventually, they meet one of the Espers, which were beings with incredible mental abilities. One of them, Takashi, got in the way unintentionally of Tetsuo trying to take down one of their rival gangs, the Clowns. An explosion happens, and long story short, Tetsuo realizes that he has some Esper abilities himself. He is an incredibly powerful psychic. Okay. And he is, at first, he can't control it, and the military tries to come and show him what's going on, and after some tests and some realizations, they give him designation number 41. Again, this is the manga, and he slowly but surely starts to understand his power, mainly because he can use a drug that will help him control it, more or less. But the other Espers, including Takashi, the one who unintentionally birthed this soon-to-be monster, they try and kill him. That was a bad move. So, yeah, they try and kill him, backfires, and he learns about Akira, who was the being that started this whole world war in the first place. And he sets out to find Akira. And again, this is where the key differences in the two happen, because he does find him and he frees him, and by doing so, he actually blows up Tokyo again. And some time passes in the manga, and Tetsuo now rules over this wasteland in Akira's name. And yeah, it's bad. And but he also, at this point in time, doesn't need the drugs anymore to control his power. He's actually got pretty good mastery of it. And that's important because when Tetsuo does have complete control of his power, he is an absolute boss. In either the manga or the anime, he's able to almost effortlessly kill people with just a wave of his hand. He can create gravity wells with his psychic abilities. He can read minds, which was technically in the anime, I think. They didn't focus on that, obviously, but he can read minds in the manga, and he is able to withstand an incredible amount of punishment, not the least of which was the soul laser, which was absolutely one of the coolest parts of the anime. The soul satellite laser was just a giant laser weapon pointing down. It tried to kill Tetsuo, and all it did was burn his arm off. Oops. And then he used technomancy with his psychic powers to rebuild himself with a metal arm, which he could perfectly control. And he's able to affect people on massive levels. He's able to block light. He's able to heal from incredible wounds. And the further he pushes himself, he can fly. He can create force fields. He has an incredible amount of abilities due to his natural power. And in the end, in technically both the anime and the comic or manga, um, it took the combined efforts of Kaneda, who was I don't know how he was armed in the book, but in the movie he was armed with a laser weapon, and he shot Tetsuo point blank and it didn't kill him. But he Kaneda was able to distract him long enough for the three Esper children who tried to kill him before to activate Akira one more time, and they created a massive bomb, essentially, that brought Tetsuo and Akira and the Espers into another universe, and essentially created a big bang where they could live and rule over the new universe that they are now set in. I don't get it, but let's just roll with it, okay? Also, Kaneda got caught up in this, and he was able to make peace with Tetsuo before they let him out so that he wouldn't be lost in this new universe. Whatever. His weakness, much like, again, the last or last five characters we've now talked about, is his arrogance. He has a chip on his shoulder. While he was fine with Kaneda protecting him in the early days of their life, he has since grown incredibly resentful to Kaneda and anyone who treats him like, a little brother or a liability or whatever. He embraced the powers that he had, even taking over a rival gang of the capsules just so he could be the boss, so he could be the leader, so he could be the man. And in the anime, he went even further and tried to steal Kaneda's bike. Dick move, man. Dick move. Don't touch that man's bike. Was a really cool bike though, and I saw the shot. That wow shot. That was really cool. Remember, that was 1980s. Anyway, but his arrogance gets him in trouble because he has a chip on his shoulder, and that makes him more prone to, let's just say, basic attacks. All right, including being shot by a laser, losing his arm. He was almost defeated by the Espers, who did not exactly have the most prominent of powers, and so on and so forth. And then the other weakness is that he can't fully control his powers. Even in the manga, he has more mastery, but he did not get to fully embody it because, as we all know, he turned into a fleshy blob monster because his powers were growing faster than his body could handle. And that's why they had to do the universe bomb, because that was the only way to stop him from just wrecking everything. So, and at that point, he lost his mind, his control, everything. So, it was a big deal. And if that was to happen, you could defeat him if you had the right amount of power, that is. So, yeah. And with that, let us now ask the question of who wins between Magneto and Tetsuo. This would have been incredibly easy if I didn't look up the manga, because in the anime, they make it clear that you could kill him if you get a lucky shot. Like, Kaneda did that, basically, with the laser weapon. He almost killed Tetsuo on his own without any, psychic powers of his own. But with the manga, with the time lapse after the second Akira bomb, he has more control. How much control is still debatable, because he still does turn into a blob monster. That was not an anime exclusive thing. He did turn into the blob monster. So if the right situation presents itself, he will lose control. And you still need a lot of power to get rid of him. But that's the catch. That's at his peak. That's when he's lost his mind. While I have no doubt that Death Battle is going to show him doing the blob monster, you honestly can't not do that. This is also a question of who gets the kill shot first, and that's going to be Magneto. All right, this is honest, and I saw a person make a reference in the preview video today. This is very much a Homelander Omni-Man situation. Omni-Man beat Homelander not just because of better strength and speed and everything, but he had the experience to know how to put Homelander down in the most satisfying of ways. Magneto is the same. Even if you take the loosest definition of the comics, he has got years and years of experience fighting the Avengers, the X-Men, various other mutant groups, humans who are trying to kill the mutants repeatedly, which is like, every other comic arc. They fought diseases, he's fought aliens, he's fought gods, he's on par with the Phoenix Force. He's fought a lot of people. Tetsuo has not. All right, he's not fought. The only people he's fought that are technically on his level were the three Espers, and he was above the Espers. All right, he's beaten them. He beat them twice, including all three of them at once. So he has the power to defeat ones like him, but Magneto is on a totally different level than him. He is an Omega level mutant who can very easily manipulate the planet should he want to. And he does that on the regular. So that already does not bode well. But the other thing here is that if he wanted to, and he's done this before, all he'd have to do to kill Tetsuo is just screw with his brain. Remember the penny of iron that we all have in our bodies? It's technically more, but the penny, he could make a penny in Tetsuo's body and just move it through the brain, and that would kill him. There's no reason to think that Tetsuo's brain would be able to withstand that kind of attack. And remember, it's his own mind and body not being able to keep up with the power that caused the blob form, which forced the Akira bomb the third time to send him to another universe. It wouldn't need to get that far in this death battle, because all Magneto would have to do is like, okay, this guy's a powerful telekinetic and telepath, which does not work on Magneto because of the helmet. He would be able to just straight up wreck his brain, and because of his own experience with telepaths and telekinetics, he already knows how to defeat him. You know, block his attacks, wait for the opening, and go for the clean shot. And then, as you see in the preview, Tetsuo is going to get his metal arm, more than likely. And if you take that version of him from the manga or the comic, or the anime, that gives Magneto instant metal that he can manipulate. So even if you take just his human form, he's got the metal. If you take the robot arm form, he's got more metal. He's more metal. So that's, again, instant advantage. But there's still one more thing. Remember, Apocalypse, like one of the ultimate enemies of the X-Men? He was beaten easily by Magneto, who fried the electrical synapses in his brain. He took down one of the hardest to take down mutants ever just by frying his brain. And that's Apocalypse. So now imagine him doing that to Tetsuo. It wouldn't be that hard of a thing to him to do. And again, they both have similar things. They can both, one can teleport, one can technically open up a dimensional wormhole. It's weird. One has telepathy, one has telepathy blocking. They can both fly, they can both create force fields. They have a lot of things that they can do one to one another. But Magneto's level of power is so grand, it just doesn't matter. Now, if Tetsuo had been able to truly master his power, then there is a chance that he could defeat Magneto. But Magneto, with his experience, with his power, with his defenses, he can actually power up his own armor to make it as hard as adamantium. That's how good he is with this magnetic manipulation. On a smaller level or on a global level, he is just that powerful. So because of that, I am picking Magneto to beat Tetsuo in this upcoming death battle. And I will try and find a coin. I'm bitter about the coin. I really wanted to do that intro. Anyway, so with that, I'm in this episode of Todd Talk. Who do you think is going to win between Magneto and Tetsuo? And how do you think the fight is going to end? Let me know in the comments below. So I thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I know you were listening, and I'll see you around.